right, guys, you're back with the Spicecast. I'm your host this evening, Ben Job. Thanks for all of our friends helping us out. A lot of them on the road. Dan Bullard's out on, he's in Washington, D.C. or something at the moment, but shout out to him. And our other board members on the Appalachian Trail. So we've got so many people representing us in the wilderness. But tonight we have Ceelyn from Safeword, up and coming, like straight ahead pop. What kind of genre? Pop and rock?
No, it's just rock.
Just
I would say if we're kind of just a slash artist. It's really hard to put us in a specific niche, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
But the majority of our songs are very like aggressive and forward moving. So I would just say that we're a rock alternative band. Alternative.
Hard music. I know
Yeah.
y'all wanted to go for that, like
Definitely a hard rock band.
Be the hard rock band of Huntsville,
Yes.
right? Kind of thing. Well, thanks and welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Appreciate
and Casey Wolf is your partner in crime in this deal. It's a 2-man band. Have you done a lot of 2-man shows before?
This is the first 2-man band I've ever been in.
Okay, very cool. Was there a drive? Like, did you think like consciously, I'm going for a smaller setup, or did it just work so well? Or
it kind of evolved. Honestly, I still tell Casey I think he had it in mind at first.
Yeah.
Because when we got together near the end of last year, he turned me on to Royal Blood and he kept telling me this is just a 2-piece. This is just a 2-piece.
Oh yeah.
And my brain has always worked that. In my brain, it's always worked that a band is 4 or 5 people.
Right.
3-piece is the lowest my brain would ever go. So I wasn't even considering a 2-piece yet. And we tried to have a couple guys come play bass, and it didn't work out. And I like Casey. I like to let Casey embellish as much as he wants, and I don't want other instruments like stepping on what he's doing.
Yeah.
And he's very polite and considerate. So if I have a bunch of people in the room doing a bunch of counterpoint with each other, he'll play the song, and he'll just sit there and
he's too musically modest.
Yes, and I want him. I don't want all those colors getting in his way.
Yeah,
I want him to be able to go off. And so we realized after trying out a couple bass players that we could do this. We could become a 2-piece
for sure.
And then it was like an epiphany. It was like, all right, let's do it.
Well, y'all definitely got like the super full sound, like the just the raucous y'all bring is always awesome. I was really impressed. You said like your first EP is definitely like a jumping off point, and you said you already have like a lot of tracks stored up and ready to go.
We have 23 songs.
Very cool.
We're already leaning on a lot of material out of the gate. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you're just getting your first like shows on your belt around here. Are you got anything upcoming or?
We launched our social media March 10th. We've already played, I think, 4 shows. We're going to be playing not this coming weekend, but the next Saturday, June 23rd, at Jam Shop in Decatur with House of Curses.
Very cool.
One of the best metal bands in Northern Alabama,
Heck
for
yeah.
sure. And Blackwater Boogie is coming down from Mississippi.
Nice.
This guy with the banjo. He has good songs.
Nice.
So he's going to come down and play with us. And then next month, July 20th, we'll be playing at the Copper Top with Aeronaut.
Very cool.
But it should be noted that Aeronaut is currently going through a name change. So they might have a new name by the time
by the time this comes out. So yeah, and metal is huge around here. I don't know what's in the water that makes metal so popular, but are you a metalhead from way back? Or?
Well, I'm from the mid '90s, late '90s Atlanta scene. So I'm all about Seven Dust. And lots of metal. In new metal like Deftones and things like that. So even all the way back old school, all the way back to Zepp and Sabbath. So yeah, the hard driving rock has always been there.
Oh yeah, and the drums are like huge in metal. And I know you got Casey, of course, to lean on in this. But what makes a good like drum mix to you? I'd say, or I'd ask.
Really the only rule, in my opinion, because a lot of times there's no rules, but the only rule in my opinion is like in the rock genre or the metal genre, when you're changing sections, there needs to be a fill.
Right.
Like you don't need to be tinging on the ride as we move from the verse into the chorus and not doing anything else, or just tinging away on the ride as you go from the chorus to the bridge.
Right.
There needs to be like something there. And what me and Casey do is we write songs in sections. And then we take those sections and we play exercises and have exercises with them, pull them apart, put them together, change them up, try to put a dynamic in each section. So that way we can, the songs have continuity and dynamic.
Yeah. So are you usually sticking to the same like framework when you go through a song, or do you like hang on to one if you're cutting it, or is it all like already predisposed?
So songs come in many different ways.
Yeah.
I would say probably the most generic way that I write a song, the majority of the stuff that I'll put out, is I'll come up with something cool. something that sounds cool to me and has just a cool jumpy feel. Like if you count 4, 1 and 3 is forward, 2 and 4 is back. Just kind of like a physiology to it.
Right.
And I'll play it to the point where I'm comfortable and I don't have to think about it, and I can start thinking about other things. And this is my secret to writing. What I'll do is as I'm in autopilot mode, I start thinking of a generic traditional chorus to go into. I don't even know what notes the strings are going to play or anything like that. I'm just thinking about what would I sing over this. This is going to transition from, say, a verse riff, and I'm just going to think of the chorus. And I come up with a very traditional chorus melody, but I don't use it for vocals. I then take that traditional generic vocal melody and I transpose it to guitar. And you'll kind of see it, you'll kind of hear it translated into the songs.
For sure.
It'll be like busy, kind of some dynamics going on and all that. And then when we hit the chorus, the songs breathe. And the reason why is because of that. The first generic vocal I come up with in my head, I put on guitar, and then I sing a vocal over that. So I'm kind of trying to hit you with like a double vocal feel.
Yeah, definitely. I'm sure that helps like fill out the sound too. With like even though you guys are a 2-piece, like you've got so much like ground covered there. That's very cool. But the first track we were gonna play is Keeper. You want to tell anything or tell everybody about that like a little bit before we play it? Or
I wrote Keeper fall of last year. I was sitting there. I was going over I think 13 to 15 songs at the time. I was kind of giving it like a macro look.
Yeah.
And I was asking myself questions like, what do we need, this and that. And I realized I didn't have that song that was just like the opener. The song that just launched you into the album. And I even said the riff aloud. I was like, I don't have that da 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 kind of riff. And so I picked up the guitar and I wrote it on the spot. And then I wrote it about my wife. It's the first verse is about that moment in my life where I knew she could be the one.
Go the distance.
And then the second verse is about us going the distance and being
yeah.
And so it's about my wife.
Awesome. Well, let's hear it from Safeword. This will be Keeper.
interesting, and I had them write our bio for our Facebook. Yeah. I had it because I just following the rules. Let a third person write about you, you know. And they came up with the most funny thing. They're like, okay, we have to compare you to somebody. Yeah, because me and Casey had the conversation. We're too old to be trying to emulate our heroes. We want to sound like we sound, whatever that may be.
Yeah.
And he was like, no, you have to have comparisons. I mean, you just have to accept the rule. And he told us this. What did he say? He said, you guys sound like Incubus kidnapped highly suspect and moved to Alabama and had a rebellious love child with royal blood and Nirvana while listening to Chevelle the entire time.
Nice.
And I was like, okay, I'll take that. I mean, he meant it as a compliment, so I took it as a compliment. Yeah. And I was like, run that. And I said that to a couple people, and they were like, yeah. I was like, all right, we'll run it.
I love how people like will just pick up on like one or two things, and then the comparisons just grow from there. And everybody seems to have a different one. It's interesting.
Yeah, and I try to write songs to where, well, not every song, but I try to write a lot of songs to where if I ask 14 people, I get a different interpretation.
Heck yeah,
from all of them. Yeah, so a lot of my songwriting isn't so necessarily straightforward. Mm-hmm. The newer songs are definitely more straightforward, but we kept 7 of our old songs, and they're kind of abstract. You can kind of take them more than one way.
Right. Well, very cool. That's a good time as any to say we're back, and that was Keeper off their first EP from Safeword, I should say. I got Ceelyn here, and man, a lot to cover on that. I love y'all's stylings. Like the tracks it's all in-house produced. Like you work on all that stuff. You know, the nitty gritty. And go through all that. You got like a lot of layers there. But you said with this track you had run through different drummers for it at first. And
but before I got to the point where I was recording it, before Casey came along, I got back here in 2015, and a big reason for me moving back to Alabama was because I had a bunch of my friends saying, let's start a band again. Yeah. I had 2 options. I could move here, or I had a job offer in the Midwest, and I moved here. And took everybody a while to get things going. Time moves a little slower down here. But I went through a handful of drummers before getting to Casey, and they all when even though I wrote this song at the end of last year, at the time I was jamming with like 3 drummers at the same time, so they all got to play over it, and they didn't really do the song justice. I actually tried to record one of the guys, and it didn't really work out. And then Casey came along, and he brought this song to life. The drums in the song just bring it to life. If you heard the versions before it,
he had the power in the
definitely.
Well, I mean, that's super huge, and just your chemistry and the way you work together is so big. When it's just 2 people, it's got to be on point. But you said you guys like you practice with a click, you run your shows on all that stuff, and I can only imagine like your shows sound very similar to this, like where it's really tight and controlled. Yeah. And I was wondering, what pattern do you use? Is it just straight ahead? Like
it's a straight ahead. There is no strong beat. So that way, we don't want to do a bunch of like, say, what if we change time signature or something like that or whatever. We don't want like 2 minutes and 40 seconds into the song for the 1 to be the 3 or something like that. If you go crazy with your song structures. So we just decided straight ahead, same.
And your wife is immune to it now.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yep.
That's another reason for Keeper.
Yep. She's completely immune to the metronome. So
a lot of musicians, they'd be homeless without certain significant others. Yep. But you get a special. Your significant other gets a special taste of your music after they hear it over and over and over, and also hear it from the like ground up.
She's a rocker. She will come into band practice and lay in front of my cab and fall asleep. She and we're playing pretty loud, so she's very comfortable in a loud music environment.
Very cool.
Gotten used to it over the years.
But yeah, and you said at a lot of your shows you end up like taking over the sound system, and because sound is such a huge thing for bands. Yeah. And so you want to give anybody some tips about that, or
what it is if some venues are very very okay with you doing that. So what I'll do is I'll just grab their hot signal. I just need 1 hot signal from the front of house board and go and make that EQ strip flat. Take if they have any reverb or any effects off of it or whatever, and then we'll take that 1 hot line. We put a mixer on stage and we'll plug that into the left. We plug even if Casey uses an acoustic kit drum, we usually run like a drum trigger to the kick drum, and so that way there's a nice kick drum coming through the mains. And then we'll bring a couple like JBL Pro 1000s and we'll put them in the backline monitor. We'll come out of the mixer on the right and go do that. And so he has control of the sound right here. Yeah. He's kind of like an on stage sound engineer.
Nice. And that's huge. I mean, just having like the same good sound over and over on every gig will help you.
He's very busy. He's playing. He's making adjustments. He's setting the numbers on the click track. I call him my quarterback. He is definitely my quarterback. He quarterbacks me in and out of the songs. Yeah.
Well, give me an idea. Like, how many pieces of drum stuff does he use? Is he pretty straight ahead, or does he go crazy with it?
No, he's not. He's not one of those guys that has a big kit with a gajillion things.
Right.
He has a kick, like 3 toms, 2 crashes, a splash, a ride, and a China Boy, and some really, really nice Meinl Dark Bison hi-hats.
Nice.
That's about it. And he only uses a single pedal. He has a double pedal, and he used to play double pedal back in the day, but he does a lot of control with his left foot on the hi-hat, and so he can play like really, really crazy patterns that I couldn't even possibly imagine playing on a single. But he does it, and he does it.
So you got like some great effects on this on their vocals, and they still sound really tight. But what are some of your like favorites or your go-tos where you're like it changes the way the song is when you crank one of them?
Well, this song in particular was the very first song that we did. I did it all on free software. I used an old 2007 Line 6 UX2 sound card and like a little bitty studio condenser mic that I had in my closet. It couldn't really take that great of a performance or that much push. And then all of the stuff is free. There's really no effects on the voice except for the filter part in the chorus.
Right.
I put a megaphone.
Oh, really?
No trying to trap her, call the keeper. That part is a megaphone. And then what I do for the chorus is just based on what I had to work with and it being free, I would just like double the track, and then I would make it like, I would take 2 tracks, pan one all the way to the right.
Yeah, great trick.
Up to 3 cent, down 3 cent, double it, up 6 cent, down 6 cent, and it's a widening trick, I guess you'd say, an old school.
Oh yeah,
like,
for sure.
It's a poor man thing.
Oh, it still works. I mean, we're using that one every day.
Yeah.
So.
That is literally
like, I need this guitar track. Needs
that
to
is
fatten up.
literally
Let's do
it. The actual guitar tone on that is it's what I did was I mic'd my actual cab with a SM57, and then I went and I put guitar IRs on it. It was like from It was from Gearbox, from that actual. The old 2007 Line 6 guitar tone over top of my amp, which I couldn't record too loud, but I could play the entire performance on it. And then IRs, I kind of broke them up. And then I think it's a flanger on the guitar solo.
Nice.
And that's
so guys,
it.
you can sound
that's
like
it.
Safeword.
It's very bare bones. If I showed you the project, I mean,
Right.
it's just straight takes.
Right.
It's very simple.
Very cool. It sounds so good, though. It sounds really awesome. I know you've listened to this track probably, I don't know how many times, just doing mixing and mastering. Are there any things that, like, stand out at you after you've done the project? Like...
Yeah, being the person who actually makes it, like, I'll hear, like, things like phonetics or, like, pronunciations or, just something, And, of course, I don't want to say that aloud to people because then they'll never hear it the same. They'll never unhear it.
Oh, no.
So, but being the person who makes it,
for sure.
And a lot of times, what you hear in your head is this grand masterpiece, and by the time you get it out, it's not what you heard in your head. I'd say probably the first 50 songs I tried to write on my own, I was like, no, it's better than this. I can't get it. And you just learn, you learn to cope with it and learn to deal with it and learn to make it the best you can.
And the more you sharpen your skills, obviously you listen back at your old stuff and you're like, wait, what was I doing?
Right. Yeah, I think everybody will forever do that.
For sure, especially musicians.
Yeah, it's a forever journey of getting better. We're students of our instruments.
Yeah.
And so like it's just a lifelong journey, and I think we'll always look back and have something to laugh at our own expense.
Yeah, hopefully laugh at it. I know we have people in here. We record them, and they're like, "Oh, you want to hear that back?" And they're like, "Please no. If I hear it back once, it's over. I'll be playing it. I'll do 98 takes later."
Once I get done with it, I really don't listen to it. Like I haven't listened to this. So, I uploaded it online and all that. Played it for a couple of friends, but you got to think. Me and Casey practice at least twice a week.
Oh, so yeah.
So I'm playing this twice a week, and even if we don't practice every day when I go home after work, I play my set. I don't care that if I've played the song 1,000 times. So it's just like kind of an everyday thing.
Very cool. Yeah,
but
and y'all sound super tight because of it.
As far as listening back though, no.
Well, the next track release, you want to tell anybody or tell everybody about that one a little bit?
Well, that song was the first song that I wrote that was fresh when we got back together. With the original roster that I put together. That was my very first offering. I had that chorus riff. And I said, guys, I always said if we got Lyric Radio, because it was my old bass player. And I was like, I said if we ever got Lyric Radio back together, this is a Lyric Radio riff to me. And I played it, and they were like, yeah. So I wrote the song, and I wanted to do something different. I've never had like a real cool ambient kind of verse. So I kind of has this verse that kind of reminds me of like the Middle East meets the Wild West.
Right.
And then take that into, kind of amp it back up in the pre-chorus, bring the drama back, and slam back into the chorus.
Very cool.
And I wrote it about. You can take it more than one way, but I wrote it about suicide. It's you can actually take it. You can take it either way. You can take the lyrics as things worked out for the better, or it didn't.
All right.
So I kind of wrote it where it's kind of like that.
All right, well, let's hear it. Safeword with Release.
The desert, the dry salvage yard of being. She looks ahead, 'cause if she looks behind, it's quick to see there's nothing left to find. Voices in the head, having their way again. Read some plays advice. Past the point, it's getting mightily out of hand. It's a little too late, out of time. I heard you from the inside. When you screamed my name, I felt you through all the hopes you dread. Feel the release of shame. Flee from the pressure, the endless sea of black and white. You used to feel, you used to win. Now realized he's empty inside. Voices in the head, having their way again. Read some pigs' advice. Past the point, it's getting mightily out of hand. It's a little too late, out of time. I heard you from the inside. When you screamed my name, I felt you through all the hopes you dread. Feel the release of blame. Make a sound. It's involuntary and outrage. I heard you from the inside. When you screamed my name, I felt you through all the hopes you dread. Feel the release of, feel the release of, feel the release.
All right, and you're back. That was Safeword with Release. I got Ceelyn here from Safeword talking to us about the making of and all their adventures. I guess you've just started having adventures.
Just getting to it.
But so how did Casey go play into the creation of that one?
Oh, well, it's what we call the CNC mill, the Ceelyn and Casey mill. That song was pretty much already made. I showed it to him. We do our thing to it. and after we run it through the CNC mill, it changes and evolves
Yeah.
into what you see. So that's what we call it. We call it the CNC mill.
Nice.
So I'll bring him an idea, and he'll stretch it. He'll do something to it. I'll bring him an entire song, and he will do something to that song. He will make multiple contributions to the song to where we have to do something, and then we put it through the CNC mill.
Right. You got a lot of like riff centric kind of stuff, but I was wondering if he like changes stuff up, or have you ever had like Frankenstein's song, like 2 songs that became one or anything like that?
Yeah, actually, we have a song. Even though it's old, it's brand new. It's called Pretty Pain.
Yeah.
And being in the old lyric radio, I wrote it, and it's just me pretty much playing monotonous parts while my lead guitarist goes off and my bass player goes off. Mm-hmm. And but I wrote the song entirely at band practice with Casey. They didn't show up that day to practice when we wrote Pretty Pain. So
And now there's a band. So.
Right. So now that we're a 2-piece, and that was like the last song that we had in lyric radio that we got a really warm reception. People really loved the chorus in that song. They loved it. So Casey brought it up. He wanted to keep that song. And I was like, it's just this over and over for me. You know, they did this and this, and he was like, rewrite it. So I took that song and another old song called Filthy Excuses, and I combined them into the new Pretty Pain and rewrote the guitar entirely just to be like a one-person guitar kind of thing.
Kind of taking all those old parts and like...
Yeah, I just kept the chorus. I just kept the chorus.
Yeah.
That's really all I kept. And then from there, I would just started building like Legos. I was like, okay, this now and this and this. It took me 3 or 4 days, and I brought it back, and he was like, oh, I got this. And there it is.
Yeah, and you've talked about like setting up bands and helping other bands like to build up, and I was wondering what are the like solid first ingredients of a good band for you?
For me, honestly, it's all about the songs.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to be a good band, or be a band at all, you need songs.
Oh, for sure.
So stay humble to the music and write good songs. That's pretty much
songwriting is the basis.
Songs. The number one thing is songs. That's
so how is like
songs.
Were you a lyricist first or a more of into playing or?
Well, if you talk to my parents or grandparents, they would tell you that I was humming along to the radio before I could even say words. A melody seemed just to be innate. And then I know this is a big contrast, but when I was a child, like my first like 8 tracks and cassette tapes and all that, it was like Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin, the Grease soundtrack.
Yeah.
So, and then from that I branched out. I was there, like, you know, when 3D stereo was created and it went boom, and hearing pop acts like, you know, Michael Jackson and Madonna and U2 at the time in the late 70s, early 80s. That was a really big deal to hear that in that big 3D stereo kind of environment.
Oh, yeah.
It's, you know, you can't really explain it. You just got to kind of be there and live it. You kind of just got to be there and live it, and go from what it sounded like to hear this to like boom, you know. And as a kid, it did something to my brain. So as I got older, I realized that I wanted to write aggressive, but I wanted to sing pretty over it, and I wanted to try to combine the two. And so growing up, though, I didn't play an instrument at all. I leaned a lot on like R&B music and soul, things like that.
Oh, awesome.
You know, girls liked it, you know, 5th and 6th grade.
Whatever played.
Yeah. If it played on the radio and I liked it, I'd sing it, you know, and it just kind of grew into what it was.
Well, that's awesome, and you arrived here. It's cool.
Yeah, the big change for me happened when I turned 16 years old. I bought a V8, and I took it to the drag strip.
Yeah.
And when you're running down the drag strip, you know, Jodeci doesn't go with that. Yeah. So I needed something, and that's what. And of course, I go back to my classics. You know, I'm Zepp and Sabbath and all that. But, but then I started, you know, finding Stone Temple Pilots. And, and of course, being in Atlanta already and knowing about Seven Dust and all that, it kind of happened after that. Once I turned 16 and bought a V8, there was a heavy infusion.
This is a powerful car, and it turned into power.
And then Filter came out, or right before that, or right around that time. And then when I heard Patrick singing Filter, I was like, I want to make my own music. That was Filter is literally the reason why I said I want to start a band.
That's cool.
I want to start a band because this guy's voice is amazing.
Right.
And if he can do that, if he can sing that pretty and scream and scrawl that, then I can do it too.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I started making bands.
I think there's a divide in like the metal community of over vocals, because there is like a range of vocals in the metal community. Yeah. Like, do you enjoy all of it, or are you like more in tune with one or the other?
Well, I think voices are like beer. It's an acquired taste. So you might like a voice that I don't like, and I might like a voice that you don't like, and you might not like my voice, and you know, and that's totally cool because that's how things work. But as far as metal, I've just always, it's been always more about the music. Like when I growing up, like when I would listen to Metallica, I couldn't have told you what the lyrics were.
Oh, right.
I could sit here and mouth the riff to you, you know, because I really felt the music. It was all about the music. I really didn't care about the lyrics.
Yeah.
I didn't care about the lyrics at all. And then that changed as I got older. I really like to infuse melody, though, over hard riffs. I just think it sounds good. It doesn't mean it's, like, proper or the right thing to do.
Right.
But it's just I like to put melody over that. And I notice these days metal seems to be broad. So like a lot of people are already coming to me and Casey and going, why you guys not claiming that you're metal? A lot of your stuff is at least tinging on metal, isn't it? And we're like, no,
right.
It's commercial hard rock with like screams for drama. Like we can go listen to bands.
Maybe it's just because it's well-produced drums.
Yeah. Well, we can go listen to bands that are significantly softer than us as a whole.
That's true.
But they have metal in their tag. Oh no.
I don't know if the internet has like caused an explosion or like a mess. I don't know, what do you call it, like an expansion of genre or whatever. But it seems very like wishy-washy now. No. And like there's Americana seems to contain 80% of American music now, and you're like, what does that mean when you tell somebody, we're an Americana band? That could mean.
But as far as what metal is to me is Euro metal.
Right.
In Flames, and I love how like, you know, that got Americanized, kind of like, you know, like Killswitch and back in the day and Shadows Fall and all that stuff.
Yeah.
No, that's kind of always In Flames is kind of you know, just kind of been the thing for me since I was a kid. I can always point to that. Yeah.
Well, do you write a lot on acoustic or?
A lot of times I write on acoustic or ukulele first.
Okay.
Believe it or not.
Yeah.
I have songs that I'm just sitting there jamming on the ukulele, and I'm like,
I would love to see you up there, like, rocking
next time I come.
Though.
Well, no, I probably will never play it on stage.
I want to see it.
Now, don't get me wrong. If like say we do a radio interview and they want us to play acoustics, we have like out of the 23 songs, I have about 4 songs that I could probably perform on acoustic, and they kind of soften them down and make them, you know, not really be all. So I could pull on a ukulele or an acoustic guitar for that, definitely.
Yeah, if you pull that for me, I would.
Yeah, next time we come, I'll bring a ukulele.
But I was actually going to ask you, like, are there any bands that are like acoustic and you'd want to hear their electric version, or vice versa? Are there any band, local or broad, or
Tenacious D?
Really?
Yeah, they're like arena rock with acoustics.
That's true.
And
so you'd love to hear like the full on.
You know how Dave Grohl will come in and do like, you know, drums with him. I want to hear him amp up. I want to see a wall. I want to see a bass player.
You know, it's weird.
I want to see
like...
Kyle going off.
Yeah,
Give him like the 2-neck guitar. I mean, Kyle is an amazing guitar
for sure.
player. So
that's totally like their shtick, but you never see it. Yeah. I never thought about that.
Yeah, I would love to see them amped up to like just big levels.
Very cool. And I wanted to ask you about like some of the machinery behind this. You said you use a distro kit, like or the distro kit.
Oh, you're talking about DistroKid?
Yeah.
Yeah, DistroKid.
Do you want to tell people about that? It seemed like a really cool way to get your music out there.
Yeah, what that is you can pay $20 a year. Just go to distrokid.com, distrokid.com, and it's $20 a year. You can upload unlimited music, and they pretty much do all the work for you. Make a song and upload it, and check your email, because within a couple days, they send you email for everything that happens. It's on Google Play, it's on Google Store, it's on here, it's on there, it's on Spotify, and they give you a Spotify artist account by joining up with them.
Okay.
So, like I said, unlimited music.
Hey, that's cool. And there's so many. I mean, there's a myriad of services and then like platforms people sell music, and it seems like every big company's got their own that they're trying to push. So it is nice to be in like all the places, because people expect you. They're like, oh, are you on this weird like Korean chat app I have? Like, I hope so, because that's what I use to listen to music, like weird stuff like that.
And I found them, you know, like I'm a gearhead like you, so I found them by, you know, like gear reviews going online, like these YouTube guys who become YouTube celebrities and do gear reviews and all that. And I started noticing that like DistroKid like started sponsoring their videos, and they're talking about them and how they use them, and it's only $20 a year and 100% royalty free and all this stuff, and I'm like, okay, what's the shtick?
Yeah, it sounds too good to be true.
Yeah, and I go and I checked out like, what was it, CD Baby and all that.
Yeah.
And I think they charged you by the album. I don't remember. It's been a minute since I was doing that research. But once me and Casey got together and we started recording our songs, well, we decided just to try DistroKid and see what it could do.
Oh yeah,
and it did the job. It just
there's so much like back end that the public doesn't see, but that musicians have to deal with, like with your art. You know, there's writing songs, and then there's 80% of the work getting it out to like people and who hears your songs, and when do they hear it, and how do they hear it?
Without DistroKid, you might as well put an entire day's worth of labor on just getting all the music up on all the relevant sites and all of that. I mean, it's a lot of time. So just having that service be done for you is extremely convenient. We can do things like pay more mind to the music, make more music.
So how do you feel like playing in a 2-piece as opposed to playing in like a full band? Has it been a different experience for you, or?
But honestly, I've always followed my drummer, and I always try to talk my guys into playing to a click.
Right.
Like say I went and joined a band as the rhythm guitarist. I would try to get the drummer to play a click to me, and everybody else can do their own thing. I just zone in on that click track and my drummer. And it's always been like that. So, you know, that way when I play the song, I can play it with authority. And
equality is always there.
If there's just a small slip up or something like that, the click is moving in linear fashion. It doesn't stop for you, and the crowd probably doesn't even know. I mean, it's just just having that discipline, and having that focus, and now I sing and play and listen to the click. Yeah. So it's kind of like a 3-way kind of thing now. Yeah. So I kind of grew.
Well, I don't want to give away any secrets, but are there like BPMs that you prefer or have it think are magical or anything? People like spend days discussing BPMs.
We have 23 songs. Our songs go from 70 BPM to 202 BPM. My natural feel, I guess you'd say, the BPM I have to stay away from because just about everything comes out at that BPM is 160. Really? And for 4/4. And then for 6/8, we have lots of songs in 6/8. Yeah. 1 2 3 1 2 3 180. Yeah, so it's like I have 4 songs in 160 and like 3 songs in 180. But then the rest of them just fill up the entire spectrum. Yeah. So
that's good to know. Just like having it down and know your patterns too, because I think a lot of songwriters don't even realize that.
My natural pattern is 160 BPM, so I try hard to stay away from that these days.
Right. Keep it spicy. But the next one we got, "Sorry Girl." You want to talk about that one a little bit before we play it?
"Sorry Girl," we played in the band room for months and months and months before I ever wrote lyrics to it. It was just something that was cool, and it just kind of grew. All of a sudden, I wrote lyrics to it, and what I wrote about, it's about the typical relationship that doesn't work. Why you always got to make something out of nothing? Why's it always got to be the end of the world? That's the hook. Yeah. Never thought to hear you say you were leaving. How hard is it to say I'm sorry, girl? So like the first verse is like a guy coming home wanting to pick a fight with his wife so he can peel out of the driveway and go get a beer.
Do the cycle.
Yeah, do whatever he wants to do. Right, the cycle. Yeah. And then the second verse is her sitting at home. You're not helping the situation. Pour yourself another drink. Take another pill. You hope these things will change, but at this rate, they never will. Kind of thing. And then the third verse is kind of just reflection on it. I wonder if we'll ever learn, or is it circles till the end? Right. For honest change, one has to yearn and understand. You can't always win. That kind of thing. Yeah. And cool. Then the bridge is kind of the same. Kind of keep going with that third verse. But a lot of people are telling us this is this their favorite song so far, and it's the most, like, as far as the harder kind of rock aggressive. It's it's the more poppy than the rest of them. And it has 4 choruses, so there's plenty enough time for the audience to learn the hook and sing it back. Yeah, cool. And sing it back. So. My buddy in Inclination of Direction, they're one of the best metal bands in Northern Alabama. Like they remind me of it's almost like they remind me of Sabbath mixed with 2018. I hear their music and my brain gets pulled, but it makes my brain
in 2 different directions.
It makes my brain, my heart, and my ears happy every time they play. Nice. I just really really love it, and I love Frank's voice. I just like his voice. And my wife came up to me after the last show he attended, and she said, "When you were playing Sorry Girl, Frank came over and said that was his favorite song." I was like, "No way," because they're heavy. Right. So and Casey,
you never know, you're gonna melt their little hearts.
Casey's relatives that'll come over and watch us play, that they all like that song and sing it. I have kids and cousins that know it and sing it, so it's it just seems to be singable and approachable.
All right, well, let's check it out. From Safeword, this will be "Sorry Girl."
Another day in paradise, clandestine as before, premeditated cause effect, he's out the door again. Why you always gotta make something out? I'm sorry, girl. How hard is it to say? I'm sorry, girl. So pour yourself another drink and take another pill. You hope these problems go away, but at this rate, it never will. Why you always gotta make something out of nothing? Why's it always gotta be the end of the world? Never thought to hear you say you were leaving. How hard is it to say? I'm sorry, girl. How hard is it to say? I'm sorry, girl. I wonder if we'll ever learn, or is it circles till the end? For honest change, one has to yearn and understand. You can't always win. Why you always gotta make something out of nothing? Why's it always gotta be the end of the world? Never thought to hear you say you were leaving. How hard is it to say? I'm sorry, girl. How hard is it to say? I'm sorry, girl. How hard? How hard? Suddenly we know change is gonna come, just as the air you breathe is as sure as the sun. What we see and what we do make us who we are. Like the one to put it in, don't expect to get far. Why you always gotta make something out of nothing? Why's it always gotta be the end of the world? Never thought to hear you say you were leaving. How hard is it to say? I'm sorry, girl. How hard is it to say? I'm sorry, girl. How hard is it to say? I'm sorry, girl. Woo!
That was Safeword with Sorry Girl, off their, I guess this is y'all's first full release, right?
No, it's going to be on the first EP.
Okay.
Yeah.
So some debut tracks, I guess.
Yeah,
For the pubs.
Yeah, and it'll probably be a part of the first album.
Uh-huh.
The first 5 songs that we have posted online with the old 7 songs that we've renewed, we'll probably release that as the first album.
Very cool. So that song, what age would you give that song? Like, when was it first incepted
That song?
into the world?
Oh, that was
Yeah.
last year. That was last year.
It's a new one.
I just played it a lot before I put vocals on it. The vocals came. I had just got done writing vocals on that right before me and Casey got back together at the end of last year.
Yeah.
But I probably played it all last summer and last fall. But I just didn't have words for it. I just kind of had the melody in my head for the chorus because I'd already written the guitar. But I didn't know what I wanted to write the song about. I didn't know anything but about that. And then it just came to me. It just happened.
And you said earlier that like people show up to your practices just to listen and stuff like that. Do you have any stories that come out of that?
Back in the lyric radio days, we used to fill the house. It seemed like
Nice.
it seemed like we would practice at Casey's, and it seemed like that house would be so full every band.
You
practice.
get the entourage, you get the kids, and you get the.
And back then, shows were a big deal. Like I remember, people being in the room being like, "The show's only 4 weeks away." It's a lot different now the way things move. But like these days, we'll have friends come over, family come over, and everything like that. It's only gotten hectic a couple times. I try to get over to Casey's around like 6 o'clock, and we're trying to get done and out of there by 8:30.
Right.
So if we have a bunch of people there and we're trying to get work done and it's kind of not happening, we'll throw the click in the PA.
Yeah.
And half the room will leave immediately. It'll be like just a couple people that, can stand it will stay. That's how we clear a room, though. We'll put a click in a PA, then we'll put a click in a PA, and we can get work done.
Once they're on time, they know. Well, I guess, I mean, a lot of people, a click is just like a weird thing and a weird idea because they don't know.
Yeah, to a non-musician, they're like, what is that? And it's stepping on everything. It drives them crazy.
Who's got the wood block?
Yeah,
Who keeps doing it?
Yep. And so that's how to clear a room.
If someone out there wants to write like a small book on clicks and whatever samples, I'm sure there's like a history of clicks
The
and
metronome,
yeah. There's got to be a book, or somebody, please, if you're watching now or listening, please
link
go
us to
write
a book
that
or go write it.
we need a click expert in here. But yeah, just doing the recording for people. The click for a lot of newer bands is like a insurmountable mountain. Sometimes they're like, I've never played with a click.
Really?
And I think it's one or the other. People love it. Like they're like, this is going to be a
Very
great
true.
idea.
I agree with that. It's a love-hate relationship for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
It's been the judge for so long. That's what me and Casey call it, the judge.
Yeah.
And it doesn't stop for us. So it keeps you disciplined and it keeps you focused. So
for sure.
The only time I'm not playing to a click is like if I start coming up with something new or something like that, I might turn the click off for a second. And if something changes, I might change the click or whatever. But it's only just kind of like small creating events where I'll turn it off and then I go right back to it. It's it's almost like I have to have it now.
If you're like someone who edits music, I think a click is like your secret weapon.
Yes.
You're like, thank God for the click.
It's the judge. It is the judge, definitely.
Judge Dredd is just the click.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted to ask you about like some of your influences. Like where you told me about like who like triggered you, but what about Casey?
Casey knows a lot about punk rock. I've learned so much about punk rock and the different styles and genres of punk rock through him, and I'm sure that I still have plenty to learn. Which, I mean, he's an amazing drummer. He started playing drums, I don't know, between the ages of 10 and 12 years old. His first band, I think, was Brom Bones. They get to open for Fugazi.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like he was like a kid and opened for Fugazi. That's kind of cool now.
Hey, that's a good way to start it off.
And then he joined the Stiletto Boys. I would say his main influence for making music is his big brother. His big brother was the singer in Stiletto Boys.
Awesome.
And then moving beyond that, he's definitely influenced by certain drummers. Moffat from Government Issue, Ward from Sabbath, Damon Chi from Don Caballero, and he loved the showmanship. He showed me all these old like black and white videos of this guy who just looks like $1 million when he plays the drums, and he's just so enjoyable to watch this guy. And it's like watching like classic stuff from way back in the day with all these people like in big house orchestras and stuff. His name was Gene Krupa.
Okay.
And he's like the master of the solo stroke or something like that.
Nice.
Whatever. Until Buddy Rich came along, with Master of the Double or whatever. I'm sure there's some story about it, but I'm not a drummer aficionado in that manner.
Yeah.
But he showed me videos. He's like this is where I get my showmanship from. Look at this guy. He just enjoys himself. And yeah, I fell in love with watching those videos.
Oh, you can tell for sure. I know, and when I play music, people talk about our drummer all the time. They're like, you look so happy, and his nickname is Happy anyway, so it comes off. But I know bassists have a bass face, and that's like a terrible affliction that we have. You have to struggle against bass face. You ever heard that one?
Bass face?
Where you just got like this frown on you because you're playing bass?
Well, we really, really enjoy playing music and playing our instruments. I don't care if I'm playing the hardest thing that we have. I just enjoy being there and in the moment,
awesome.
and playing for a crowd. I really, really like it. Well, Casey will tell you just as much as I will. We're not really mean muggers.
Yeah,
we don't really mean mug a lot. We have noticed this, and we've been told by this. Like, we'll look at each other and smile, and then as we look away, we start because we're focusing back in on the click.
We're
real
like,
quick.
wait, we're doing too much time looking at each other.
Yeah, like I'll look at him and smile, and then like if you see us in video, you'll notice we'll look at each other and like make an expression, and then as we turn out, like we focus real quick to get right back on top of where we were.
Right.
Like, and you see it. We both do it.
And then the judge comes in.
Yeah, like we both do it. Like we both do it. Like I've seen videos like where we both do it. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. And when you watch us on video, like we move at the same.
Oh,
like,
I can
my
my
hand is matching. I mean, everything it matches because we're playing to a click.
Oh yeah. Well, plus, and just having two people is I can only imagine is amazing because I'm sure you know all his stylings and all those little things that like his themes and stuff that he kind of like rolls through.
The coolest
You're like,
thing,
I think I know what's gonna come out.
The coolest thing about Casey is when I write a song, I kind of already
have an idea of what he's gonna
play.
Yeah,
and then he shows me something that even makes it better
Oh,
every time. every
Nice.
time. There
Nice.
has not been one time where it's like he doesn't play something as good as I'm thinking in my head. I'm already thinking like Casey's gonna do something like this, and then I'm not a drummer, so he puts,
doubles it down.
He puts the drummer on me. I'm like, wow, that is amazing. And then of course I play guitar and bass at the same time. At the same time.
Right. So you've just got your chords comped like that, or you have a...
Well, I had to go through all of my songs and kind of redo. Once we decided that we were going to be a two-piece.
Really interesting, though.
Well, once we decided we were going to be a two-piece, I had to go back through and record everything and make sure I'm not putting too much colors on the guitar.
Right.
And then I'll tell you what I do. What I do is I come out of my guitar and I go into an ABY with active buffers. And A goes out to my bass rig. The first thing it goes through is a drop pedal to drop it an octave. And then it goes into a multi-effects processor so I can put like fuzz pedals or whatever.
Yeah.
And then it has its own EQ. Right?
Good.
Then I come and so I'm taking all the treble out.
Right.
Because I don't want those high notes to register.
Well, yeah, you don't want to mess up everything.
Or I just want my guitar amp to overpower the bass amp. It's not really necessarily meant to be a standalone instrument. As I evolve the bass rig and buy more pedals, I'll bring up the noise floor for it.
Yeah.
But for now, it's really about just like filling in the low end spectrum. And so I go into the multi-effects presser, come out into another EQ, take all the treble out. Then run it to the head, which has a parametric EQ.
You have to be a gearhead just to afford all this stuff.
Then I run it to the head, which has a 10-band parametric EQ. I take all the treble out of it. So so it's coming.
You kill that treble one way or the other.
Yeah, and I went through and I redid all the chords where the majority of my chording now is just like root fifths with octave stabs.
Yeah.
And so what I'll do is like say if I'm chording away, we're in third gear, go go go, big noise, Yeah. And then I want to cut through that like with a lead guitar part, I'll hit an octave. And it cuts through, it stabs through that low. And to play it without getting the bass to pick up on the high octave, what I'll do is as I'm hitting the low strings, I hit them hard, and then I'll flutter off the strings to where it hits that last fretted note lighter, and the guitar amp picks it up great. But you don't really hear it register in the bass.
So you kind of have to learn how to play for it too.
Yeah, because it's the opposite of Royal Blood. You got to think like in Royal Blood, like he's playing one finger, one note. So where are these chords coming from? He's using pedals like Pogs, and so that kind of works against me though. I'm playing 6 strings. I can't go be playing jazz chords.
Yeah, right.
Without everything registering, especially if I change from clean or from dirty to clean. I have to be very picky about what I do and how I do it. So all of a sudden, now that I've adopted this 2-rig system, it actually dictates my approach to riffing.
For sure.
Yeah, and I'll learn and grow as we go on. So that's cool.
Interesting to hear about it because it's like a drum and bass idea, but like thrown in through the guitar, and then you have to compose around it.
So the way my signal chain works is I go out of my guitar into an ABY pedal that has 2 active buffers in it. The bass goes through the chain I explained to you, and the guitar chain goes through all of my effects pedals, and I put a TU2 at the end of it so that it re-picks up the signal and rebuffs it, so I have the very strong signal at the front of my amp. I know I have a very strong signal at the front of my amp when I have to dial the treble.
Right.
Because that's if you don't have that, then you're not going to get a lot of treble. If you run through like 14 pedals and just plug into an amp, you're just not going to be in trouble. So by having the active buffer at the beginning of my chain, running it through everything, re-picking up the signal, and then pushing that strong and hard to the front of the amp, then I have the strong signal.
So are you all about like analog pedals, or are you more into the digital stuff now?
Always been a Boss guy. Growing up, Boss was the pedal. That was the boutique pedal.
Yeah.
So growing up, as more companies came out and I started experimenting with more companies, I realized they did a lot of tone suck and they changed your tone. What I want is I play a 6505 Plus with a high gain kit from Eurotubes, best tubes maker in the world in my opinion. And so I have a very nice guitar tone. And when I put anything on that, a chorus, a filter, or like a phaser or a flanger, I don't want it to suck my tone. I really don't even want it to really alter the tone. I just want it, like, if you just think of an effect just laid over the top of it.
Right.
And bosses do that perfectly.
Nice.
They just put an overlay, so you know that there's something there. And then I just use them for colors and flavors. They're there and they're gone. And it's 99% guitar tone. It's just I'll like for if I switch to a clean and I have like a melodramatic verse, I might throw a phaser on it for a second, and it kind of just alters the flavor, and then I take it off, and so it's. But I like Boss pedals because they don't suck my tone, and they keep it simple.
So do you have like a do you have a stage plot that just has like your pedal bass like on it, or have you ever mapped it all out? Because it sounds like pretty intense. Do you have to do it on paper first, or
well, actually, I actually have a picture of it, a diagram. I have a lot of friends who have been bugging me about it. And I've had complete strangers message me on Facebook after watching me play.
Yeah.
And ask me, dude, I noticed you had a guitar with only one chord coming out, but you were playing bass and guitar. And instead of having the same conversation a million times, I went and made a diagram and put it on my Facebook.
There you go.
And was like, for all of my guitar friends who are asking. And then, of course, I can always...
Instead, you have to tell it to like 3 different people at the gig.
So that's the chain.
Oh, nice.
So it goes in there. That's the bass chain, and then that's the guitar chain going out.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and I see some cool stuff on there.
No, but it's all balls. It's all ball stuff with a Digitech and a drop and a whammy. And the last thing I go through, before I hit my bass amp is an EQ to help with the treble.
Yeah.
3 EQs in my bass chain to help me do this.
Hey, that's huge though.
Yeah, 3 EQs because you're playing a guitar. It's it's tricky. And then the last
even
thing
with just playing bass, EQ is so good.
Yeah, and then the last thing that hits my guitar amp is a noise suppressor because we do a lot of staccato, stop-start kind of stuff. And when I touch those strings, I want them to mute.
Right.
So I set it to noise reduction and set it to about between 50 and 60%, depending on the venue or how I'm playing that day.
Well, the mess and the fuzz and the frequencies are going to be your enemy when you've got
like if we have this,
2 piles of
if we have this like big
effects.
like whole note rest in the song or half note rest in the song, I don't want to go. I want no sound.
Very cool.
So.
Well, how's the like music you've written ended up here? Like, what was the first like stuff you brought to the public? Like your first like.
Keeper was the very first song that we brought out.
Oh, I mean, just in your whole career though.
Oh, in the whole career.
Yeah.
The very first song that I ever went into a studio and recorded, I was 15 years old, and it was an acoustic jam.
Okay.
And then after that, I started joining bands, multiple bands. Most notably, Fake a Smile and Lies and Fire were the bands that I was in Atlanta, and we kind of did what we're doing now. Like my guitarist, I had a basement and he was setting up a studio. He had 8-ats, the old 8-ats with a board and all that. And we made vocal rooms and all that. We were kids just trying to learn gear and do the best that we could. And it led to some pretty fun things. You got to play play the Masquerade and things like that. But we were always under the weight of like the best bands. Yeah, you're in Atlanta. So,
for sure, they're world class.
Yeah, back then, even Seven Dust had already made it, and they're superstars. Like they're to us, being an Atlantean, they're the biggest local band in the world. They're our big brothers,
right?
And then for our local scene, there was a band called Minus Driver, who put a clinic of a stage show on every time they perform. Yes, they were so good. They ended up eventually getting signed by Warner Republic, and then they got shelved. I don't even know why. They're amazing. They put out like a 5-song album. Even had Andy Wallace mix it. So it was a pretty big deal. And then after that, it didn't work out, and the singer went on to make an indie band called, I think if I remember correctly, it was called Winter Ransom. And he kept the same drummer, I think it was, and they were awesome too.
Right.
And then that just kind of phased out. But that was the big band. We all were under the weight of the throne of Seven Dust.
Right.
Period. But I would say Minus Driver, they were really, really good. If there was a band out of all of us that was going to go anywhere, it was definitely them, for sure.
Well, so you said you had to choose between like the Midwest and Huntsville at some point. What brought you back to the South? Was it
the band?
The South?
It was the music. Oh, and also being around family. I left here in 2009, and the big 1,400 miles. Well, I was 1,400 miles just in New Mexico, but the big journey that took me all across the nation. I was away from family for so long.
Yeah.
So I reconnected. We're not reconnected. Just was talking to family here as I was making the decision, and they were like, "Come home." In the last 6 years, you've come home for one Christmas. We miss you, and I'm glad I did because I got to spend the last little bit of time with my grandfather who recently passed away in February. So I'm glad I came back.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
very cool. Yeah, we do a little segment called like cheat codes. So I wanted to ask you if you had an old school cheat code to activate on your life or your project, what would you run with?
ABACABB.
What is that? What is that like? Invulnerability or something?
That was the blood code for the original Mortal Kombat for Genesis.
Oh, just the blood code.
You had to put in the blood. You had to put
just want to brutalize
when it came up
your life.
and showed that you had to go ABACABB, and it would go boo, and then you get the blood.
Mortal Kombat was like I remember the kerfuffle around it was just so huge.
It's the
they're
reason
destroying America.
Yeah, that Mortal Kombat is the reason they came out with the rating system.
Yeah,
That's the game that did it.
That's amazing.
That's the game that
is
did it.
amazing.
And that ate a lot of my quarters. Until Killer Instinct. Killer Instinct probably ate the most of my quarters. I got so into Killer Instinct.
Killer Instinct had like the wacky like Lion Man and all that stuff, right?
Saberwolf and Glacius and Orchid and all that. And they had moves where you had an opening move and then a middle move and then a finisher move. And so you could just go at it, and just I probably spent more quarters on that game than any other game.
So definitely the blood code. So, but I definitely miss that whole aspect of like the music being so wrapped up, because they had like soundtracks and bands that would launch off of video games and stuff like that. And Mortal Kombat, I mean, it had a good bit of like influential metal tracks on it. I bet.
I'm a big fan of video game music. I'm a very big fan of video game music, especially like when I put together the music for our wedding, it's pretty much all Final Fantasy.
Nice.
I even took a clip of the Final Fantasy VII's main theme, and I clipped it from where the guy plays the trumpet, and she came out and like stepped onto the lawn as the entire orchestra just opened up and all that, and it was magical. And that was video game music. And it was so funny because people were there, they're sobbing, they're in tears, and later on they were like, that music it touched me, and I'm like, that's video game music.
Right. Oh yeah.
And some of my favorite soundtracks didn't even launch bands. They're just awesome music, like the Streets of Rage soundtrack. The original Genesis. I could just listen to it. I mean, I know it sounds like a Casio keyboard now, but
no,
it still sounds so awesome. Yeah.
I mean, I can't claim all of it because I'm younger than some of it, but the Genesis like sound chip, I think, has some amazing. It's like the next level of just the noises, because you have like I have some friends that do I guess they create music with the old sound chips, but the Genesis had like another level on. I can't remember how many. Like,
I remember doing an A/B comparison when I got my Genesis with my Nintendo. I got my Genesis and I plugged it to the TV.
Which one's gonna rock out?
Well, I plugged the Genesis up to the TV when I got it, and it was just so bright. The colors popped, and when I hit the A button and Sonic jumped, it was like boom! It was just, and the soundtrack just sounded so good, and I was like, it's another level, like you're saying. So I turned it off and I plugged my Nintendo back in. I think I was playing Renegade, which is kind of grayish, and it was just like the music and the animation. And I was just like, let me plug this Genesis back in. It was amazing to be there, like, and move from the 8-bit realm to the 16-bit realm. Yeah, like it's I mean, it's hard to explain it. And Genesis, they kicked a lot of butt on things like sports games, and like I preferred like their Street Fighter. They had a nice 6-button controller, so I really preferred that over, say, like the Super Nintendo. If you want to play an unplayable game, get the original Street Fighter 2, not the Turbo Edition. The original Street Fighter 2 for Super Nintendo. It's so slow that when you try to jump,
like pressing the buttons,
when you try to jump, say you're Rue and you try to jump, it's like, it's how slow it is.
Everything with
I'm
a
not
half-second
kidding you.
delay.
Not kidding you.
It's like chess at that point, because you're just deciding what your friend's gonna do.
Well, I mean, once these dragon punches and fireballs become second nature, I mean, you could input things way too fast for that game. So. Unplayable, absolutely unplayable.
Yeah, that's what we should do next, is like a video game symposium or something. That's coming back though. There's like bands I can't remember. I think it's Bit Brigade does like a touring act with live players of video games and live music, doing the tracks and the sound effects and stuff like live. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Like, at least maybe there's a market for that sort of stuff. But
and if you like orchestras. Was it the Tour de Japon? It's spelled Tour de Japon. You can look them up on YouTube. They travel around playing Final Fantasy music.
Oh yeah,
and they're amazing.
Man.
I would buy tickets and go see them every time they came anywhere near me, if they would come near me.
I think people that haven't gotten into the video games don't know how deep it goes with I mean, Final Fantasy's got decades of history, plus insane. The production and stuff that goes into some of the, especially the big games.
Yeah, I think if I'm correct, they pour millions of dollars into their soundtracks.
Oh yeah,
if I'm correct, I mean they put a lot of money into that stuff for sure.
I definitely had when I was a kid, I had ripped the Warcraft 2 soundtrack off of a Mac or something and put it on a CD and just listen to it all the time. It's just like, and it was all these like MIDI drums and stuff, and it, now I might be brutalized by the sound clips they used, but it was amazing back then.
I'm still a fan of 8-bit. I can always just listen to 8-bit music. I don't know what it is about it. It's probably nostalgic. It's just weird. It was by that time of my life, so I just never stopped being a fan of it.
But hey, if it gets people into music, go for it.
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
But Keelan, sorry. Thanks, sir. I got it right all the way up till the end. Isn't
Oh,
that
you're fine.
crazy?
You're fine.
But thanks for coming in and talking to me, man.
No problem. It'd be good to come back and do it again.
Oh,
and
yeah, for sure.
Maybe play a Spice Fest or something.
Heck
or-
yeah.
we'll definitely do it
Looking
again,
forward to it, man. Yeah, and Punch Out. That's a good video game. So I mean, that's
Punch
also
Out,
a
yeah.
great track.
Yeah, that's true.
Do you want to tell them about it? This will be our last track for the evening, unfortunately, but
Well, growing up, me and my friends, we always had this talk about a subject that we created. We called it buzzology. And it seemed that the majority of adults, they have some kind of like work reward cycle of, of like, say, getting a buzz. Like some guys can't wait to punch out the clock at 5 o'clock and go to the bar. Some guys can't wait till the end of the week to do whatever they do, or this or that. But it seems like that work reward cycle. And that's exactly what it's about. It's just, it talks about it. You can take it as it's, discussing it or celebrating it.
Yeah.
Or whatever. But it's about the topic of buzzology. It's something that I've had that conversation a million times with my friends growing up, and decided to turn it into a song.
Yeah, I think that's a great. I got a lot of traction in America because I don't know. To me, America's priorities are always kind of wacky compared to like normal what the ideal human life might be. But well, thanks so much for bringing it in. And you guys are big on Spotify. You love to point people that way, but all over the interwebs on Amazon and all that stuff. It's Safeword. Facebook, is it?
Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Spotify, we're everywhere.
Very cool. And check it out. This will be taking us out, Safeword, with Punch Out.
Are we there yet? Glassy eyes stared at, but we're still here. Now I'm just trudging along. Need them feels, yeah. Color choices everywhere. Piles thick, getting quick, used up and it's gone. Anywhere is better than him. The grind drowns it. I won't complain once the cycle nears. Ash acquisition. When you know the team ends are coming out to play, we gotta get there on time. Craven is ready, keep that steady. Get set for lift off. But not it comes sooner, and it's not the rumor. It's gonna be one hell of a time. Craven is ready, keep that steady. Get set for. Take two was one to do. In a haze of red days, bloody shades, nothing new. Off in the cutting on the side. Familiar shapes, strange spies. Anywhere is better than him. The grind drowns it. I won't complain once the cycle is Ash acquisition. When you know the team that's coming out to play, we gotta get there on time. Craven is ready, keep that steady. Get set for lift off. If not it comes sooner, and it's not the rumor. It's gonna be one hell of a time. Craven is ready, keep that steady. Get set for.
This has been a production of Spice Radio from Huntsville, Alabama. You guys know what you want, and you don't have to do too much to get it. Get with us at spice-radio.com. If you have a podcast, you make music or art, or you have an event that you want to promote in the Tennessee Valley, you can find us at www.facebook.com/spiceradiohuntsville or on Twitter at spiceradiohsv. And again, our website, spice-radio.com, radio.com, radio.com, radio.com.